This is J. Krishnamurti's fourth public talk in Ojai, California, 1973.
This is the last talk we said we were going to talk over together this morning the question of religion and meditation. Of course, if you are an intellectual, till you get rather old, then you become rather religious. Religious in the orthodox sense of that word. But generally, the average intellectual turns his back on any idea or concept or religious thought. And if you are sentimental and rather romantic, you abandon your particular religion in which you have been brought up and become a Hindu, Buddhist, go after Zen, shave your head, call yourself this or that. All a form of romanticism and sentimentality. And you trot off, if you have the money and the energy, to go to India or Japan and try to find some guru who will tell you or lead you directly to nirvana or to enlightenment. And you have every kind of religious thought, neurotic, fairly rational, and so on. And especially when the world is in chaos, when there is a great deal of trouble and uncertainty, one wants some kind of anchorage, some kind of haven to take refuge in. And religions, especially organized, or some exotic guru who comes over to this country, you become his follower, accept all the things he says, obey. You know all that is happening in this country. So when you look around the world over, what part does religion play in one's life? I'm using that word religion the urge the intense pursuit of that which is sacred. If there is anything sacred. A symbol can be made into something that is holy, an image, either created by the hand or by the mind. And then you worship it, because there is the desire in each one to be absolutely sure, certain, that life being as it is, full of change, sorrow and suffering and confusion, the mind demands that we seek not only psychological security, but something more than that. Something that is really sacred. And in the search of that, the priests, the theologians, the philosophers, the gurus intervene. They say you can't possibly understand that. You can only go through us. We'll be your interpreters, your guide, your friend and your philosopher. And you get caught in their net. Pleasant, sometimes rather unpleasant, exhibitionism, and sometimes worthwhile, but rarely. And the mind can make anything sacred. A tree, a mountain, the flashing waters of a river, the image that you have in your church or temple, and the worship of a legend, a myth, a story. And out of that, we weave something holy, something that we consider most sacred. When you have observed all this quite objectively, non-sentimentally, without any emotion, which doesn't mean that you become purely intellectual, but rather critical, doubtful, skeptic. And the urge or the search to find out for oneself if there is anything holy. And this morning, if we may, we try to find out for ourselves if there is anything sacred at all in life, or is it all purely an imagination, a myth, something that the mind has put together in order to feel that life has a meaning, knowing the actual life that one leads has no meaning at all. We want to give it a meaning. And that meaning is, or perhaps, a legend. So having observed all this right throughout the world, what is religion? Because man has always sought it out. Man has always inquired into the mysterious, into the unknown. Because he knows our own daily life has lost its mystery, its romance. The daily life is such a struggle, pain, sorrow, anxiety, with flashes of occasional joy and delight. And he wants more experience, wider, deeper, lasting. And it appears religions, whether they are organized or invented or the legendary form of it, offers something of mystery. And also it offers wider, deeper experience. So, if we are at all serious, deeply watchful, aware, what is the meaning of this search? What is it that we are seeking, either trotting off to India or Japan or other romantic countries, or seeking through books what others have said? What is it that we are actually, if we are clear, if our own desires are fairly obvious, what is it that we are seeking? And how do you know that when you find something in your search, that it is real and not an illusion, not a thing that the mind has projected? How do you know that you have found, or anybody know that they have attained, found enlightenment, or reached the highest form of religious thought? How do they know? You know, we are inquiring into this question together. We are sharing this problem together. It's your problem. And when to share something, it is important that in sharing, the thing that we share is of the final importance, not who shares it. Now we are inquiring into this question of seeking. Can the mind seek at all and find? Is the mind capable? And can the mind, if it has found what it calls the ultimate, the immeasurable, the nameless, the most sublime, how does it know? Or, as it cannot possibly know, that which is limitless, unknowable, and which cannot possibly be experienced. All the mind can do is to free itself from all the categories of pain, anxiety, fear, and the desire that ultimately creates illusion. During the last 3 talks, we have been trying, or rather we have, inquired into relationship. We pointed out how important it is to have right relationship with another, in which the me, with all its images, is the factor, is the center which divides all relationship and therefore brings about conflict. If the mind is not clear on that point, has not brought about right relationship with another, mere inquiry into or the seeking of a reality has no meaning whatsoever. Because life is relationship. Life is action in relationship. And if that is not deeply, fully understood and established, you cannot go very far. And without that, merely to seek becomes a form of escape from the reality of relationship. And also, we talked, or rather we went into the question of fear, pleasure, love, and that thing which we are so frightened, death. We went into that. Till the mind is deeply established in behavior which is righteousness, order which is virtue, which we went into yesterday, search or inquiry into what is real has no meaning, because such a mind which has not freed from conflict can only escape into what it considers to be real. So we are, if you have gone through this and really deeply understood it and live it, then how can the mind, which is so conditioned, which is shaped by the environment, by the culture in which we are born, how can such a mind find that which is not conditioned? How can a mind which is always in conflict within itself find that which has never been in conflict? So, in inquiring, the search has no meaning. what has meaning and significance is whether the mind can be free. Free from fear, free from all its petty little egotistic struggles, free from violence and so on. Can the mind, your mind, be free of that? That is the real inquiry. And when the mind is really free, then only it is capable, without any delusion, inquire if there is or if there is not something that is absolutely true, that is timeless, immeasurable. Can we go on from there? You know, it's really quite important to find out for yourself, because you have to be a light to yourself. You cannot possibly take the light of another or illumined by another. You have to find out for yourself this whole movement of life, with all its ugliness and beauty and the pleasures and the misery and the confusion, and step out of that stream. And if you have, and I hope some of you have, then what is religion? Because all organized religions are a matter of thought, building a structure, a legend, round a person or an idea or a conclusion. And we say that is not religion at all. What is religion is a life that is lived integrally, wholly, not fragmented. That which is fragmented is corrupt. And most minds are broken up. So, in asking what is the mind, the brain, that can function in the world, in the field of knowledge, and also live in the freedom from the known. Because these two must go together in harmony. I hope we are communicating with each other our way. I am not at all sure, but it doesn't matter. I am not talking to myself. I can do that in my room. And I do that in my room anyhow. But we are talking this problem over together. It's your responsibility to share it. Not to react to it, but to share it. If you react to what is being said because you think it's wrong or right, then your reaction makes you more enclosed, more temperamental. You are then following according to your own idiosyncrasies, which have nothing whatsoever to do with the objective perception, awareness. And in inquiring into this deeply, one asks, what is meditation? In this country, unfortunately, and I'm using that word purposely, most unfortunately, you have started talking about meditation. You have formed groups and, But you have never asked, what is meditation? You have been told how to meditate. There are those who practice transcendental meditation, practice Zen, practice every form of exotic, oriental mischief called meditation. But you never asked, what is meditation? Why should you meditate? What's the point of it all? Why should you sit cross-legged, shave your head, breathe in certain ways, do yoga and all the rest of it? What for? Is that meditation? You pay $40 or $50 to some teacher who will give you a mantra, a transcendental pill. You laugh. But you are doing it in a different way. So, let us find out for ourselves why we should meditate, what meditation means, whether it has any meaning whatsoever. To do that, you must totally, completely discard what everybody has said about meditation. Can you? Or are you caught in a net, a trap of other people's ideas about meditation? Then if you're caught in that, you're merely entertaining yourself or trying to find the light of another through some practice. I hope you are paying attention. Why should you practice? What does practice do? You practice a piano. You practice how to ride a bicycle. You practice for a while how to drive a car, so that you mechanically can operate. And when you follow a system, a method, however subtle, however silly it is, you are really reducing your mind to a mechanical entity, making it more dull than it is. Are you listening to all this? Or are you saying, poor chap, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's against this or that, therefore he's battling against other people's ideas and so on. After all, one must use reason. One must use logic, sense. That's part of our life, that's part of our intellectual capacity. You can't just discard it and just be driven by our own particular desire. We have to understand our own desire too. So when you practice, you are making the mind conform to a pattern set by another. The other is your guru or your leader. And when he says that he knows what you should do, how does he know what you should do? For God's sake, do wake up. When a guru or a teacher says he knows, or a priest, you may be quite sure that he doesn't know. What he knows is what he has been told, the past, the legend, the idea, the conclusion. He cannot possibly know the unknown. You cannot possibly experience the unknown. You can only experience that which you have already experienced. Otherwise, you cannot recognize the new experience. Right? So when you are seeking wider, deeper experiences, those experiences can be recognized as wider and deeper because you have already experienced them. Otherwise, you cannot recognize them. So you go round and round in circles. That's one point. So, in inquiring into what is meditation, the first thing is, don't follow anybody, right? Including the speaker. don't accept what anybody says. Because you have to be a light to yourself. You have to stand completely by yourself. And to do that, because you are the world and the world is you, you have to be free of the things of the world, which is to be free of the me, the ego, with all its aggressions, vanities, stupidities, ambitions. So what is meditation? How do you find out? One says it is obvious that to see anything very, very clearly, the mind must be quiet. If you want to listen to what is being said, you must give your attention to it. And that attention is the quality of silence. Right? If you want to find out not only the meaning of words, but beyond, I must listen very, very carefully. In that listening, I'm not interpreting what you're saying. I'm not judging, I'm not evaluating. I'm actually listening to the word and what lies behind the word. Knowing that the word is not the thing, that the description is not the described. So I am listening to you with total attention. That attention being or rather, in that attention, there is no me as the listener. The me that separates itself from you who are talking. So it divides the me and the you. So the mind that is capable of listening completely to what is being said and going behind the word must give total attention. And you do that when you are looking at a tree with that total attention, or when you are listening to music, or when you are listening to somebody who is telling you something most urgent, serious. That state of attention in which the me is totally absent. That is meditation. Because in that state, there is no direction. There is no frontiers which thought has built around attention. I wonder if you're getting all this. And attention implies A mind that has no desire to acquire, attain, arrive, or be something. Then, if it is, then conflict comes into being. So attention is a state of mind in which direction, will, the total absence of any conflict has no place in it whatsoever. And that takes place when I'm trying to listen to you, when I'm listening to the sound of a bird, or when I'm looking at those marvelous mountains. So, in that state of attention, there is no division as the observer and the observed. When there is that division, then there is conflict. Right? Now, that is meditation, only beginning of it. And if a mind is really serious in its inquiry, this meditation is necessary because life, which has lost all its meaning, the way we live, becomes a meaningful. Life becomes a movement, a harmony between the known and the unknown. So, meditation is a life, a daily life, in which there is no control whatsoever. You understand what I'm talking about? Our life is spent, is wasted. The enormous energy that goes into control and dissipation, wasting and controlling. Have you noticed this? How we spend our days in control. I must and I must not. I should and should not. Suppressing, expanding, holding, withdrawing, being attached and breaking away from attachment. Exercising will to achieve, to struggle, to build. There is always in this a direction. Where there is direction, there must be control. Right? And we spend our days in control. And we do not know how to live a life completely free of control. Are you interested in this? I'll show it. Follow this. I'll show it to you. No, this is not an entertainment. This is not an amusement. This demands tremendous inquiry, great seriousness, to find out a way of living in which there is not a shadow of control. Why do we control at all? And when we control, who is the controller? And what is he controlling? That is, withholding, directing, shaping, conforming, imitating. And one observes in oneself the contradictory desires, wanting and not wanting, doing this and not doing that, contradiction, the opposition of duality. Please follow all this. Now, is there duality at all? The opposite. I'm not talking the opposite of man and woman, all that, dark and light. Inwardly, psychologically, is there opposite at all? Or only what is? The opposite exists only when I do not know what to do with what is. Right? If I know what to do with what is, if the mind is capable of dealing with what is and going beyond, the opposite is not necessary. That is, if one is violent, as most people are, its opposite, which is non-violence, and the practicing of non-violence, has no meaning. Because being violent and the practicing of non-violence, there is an interval of time, isn't there? And during that interval, you are being violent all the time. So it has no meaning. So what has meaning is being violent. Our concern is to go beyond it, not in the opposite, but to be free of it. I wonder if you understand this. I'm violent. If I am, I'm violent. I don't think in terms of the opposite. So what do I mean by violence? Is it a word? Please listen to this carefully. Is it a word that provokes the idea of violence? Or is it a word that I have used before in the past to give it a meaning, and that meaning is violence? So I recognize the new violence in terms of the past. So I am translating the new feeling, which I have called violence, in terms of the past. Therefore, I am conditioning the new experience, new reaction, or a new quality which I have called violence, I clothed it in terms of the old. Got it? Therefore, what takes place? I am always translating the new in terms of the old. And therefore, I never meet the new with a fresh mind. So, the new reaction, the new feeling I have, I translate it as violence because I am looking at it with the ideas, conclusions, words, meaning of the past. So the past creates the opposite of what is. I wonder if you get all this. Whereas the mind can observe what is without the naming it, without categorizing it, putting it into a frame, or wasting energy to escape from it, but to look at it without the observer, which is the past, to look at it without the eyes of the past, then you are totally free of it. Do it and you will see. Have you understood what? Need I explain it once more? Yes? All right, let's go at it. I don't want to turn this into a school. So, have you noticed in yourself, there is always the observer and the observed, right? There is you looking at the thing. So there is a division between you and the thing you observe, right? You observe that tree, and the observer is the past. He says that's an oak tree. When he says that's the oak tree, he has the botanical knowledge of that tree. That knowledge is the past, and that past is the observer. So the observer is different from the tree. Obviously, that must be so. But when we are dealing with the psychological facts, is the observer different from the thing observed? When I say I am violent, the observer, the sayer who says I am violent, is he different from that which he calls violent? Obviously he is not. So when he separates himself from the fact as the observer, he creates a duality, he creates a conflict, and he tries to escape from that conflict through various means. So it is not capable of meeting that fact of violence. Have you got it? You work it out. If you can't, I must go on. So, to understand this movement of division as the observer and the observed, who creates conflict, and therefore no relationship, direct relationship with another. Right. So, in meditation, life is a total movement, not fragmented, not broken up as the me and the you. In that, there is no me to experience. I don't know if you see this. Look, the mind is incapable of experiencing something that it does not know. Mind cannot possibly experience the immeasurable. That's a word. But you can give a significance to that word and say, I will experience that state of the immeasurable, higher consciousness and all that business. Who is the experiencer? The experiencer is the past. And he can only recognize the experience in terms of the past. Therefore, you must know it already. Therefore, in meditation, there is no experiencing. Sir, if you do this, you'll climb the highest heavens. So, you have not only to understand this whole movement of daily living, which is part of meditation, and in that, no control whatsoever. So that there is no conflict, no direction, but a life that is immensely energetic, active, real, creative. And also, in meditation, the mind becomes completely quiet, silent. You know, silence has space. And our minds have no space. They're too crowded. Not only with knowledge that we have acquired, but it's so eternally occupied with itself, what it must do, what it must not do, what it must achieve, what it must gain, what others are thinking about it. It is full of knowledge of other people's conclusions and ideas and opinions. So we have very little space in our mind. Have you noticed it? And when you have no space, one of the factors of violence is the lack of space. Right? If you have watched the birds on a telegraph wire of an evening, you will see how they keep space between each other. And in ourselves, we have very little space. And one must have space. And it is part of meditation to come upon this space. Space not invented by thought. Are you following all this? Because when you have space, the mind can function totally. Our brains, may I go into all this? You know, our brains can function, not that I'm a brain expert. I watch my brain very carefully. I spent a lot of days in looking at my brain, watching it. certain part of the brain can only function efficiently when it has total order. Order there means security. And when the brain has a certain part of the brain has complete security, then it functions logically, sanely, rationally. When there is disorder in the brain, certain part of the brain, then it acts neurotically. So the brain is all the time trying to bring about order. Even though it may find order in neurotic behavior, that also is order, security. I don't know if you follow this. And the space that the brain, with its memory, with its capacity to function orderly, creates the space that is necessary for itself. You observe this in yourself, you'll see it. That is, through dreams. Oh Lord, must I go through all this? Most people dream. I'll be very quick, I have lots. I must get on with it. Most people dream. Dreams are a continuation of our daily life. What you are doing, what you are thinking, what you are, what you are doing daily life, when you sleep, the brain is still active, continuing with what it has been doing. If your life during the day is disorderly, the brain tries to bring order while you are asleep. Through dreams, that's one of the functions of dreams, to bring order. But whereas if you bring order during the daily life, waking hours, the brain then becomes much more active, not in the sense of bringing about order, because you've already brought order. It becomes much more active. It makes itself, it becomes younger, because it is renewing itself. Come on, sir. Are you following all this? And a brain which is completely in order, absolute order, not relative order, has no conflict, and therefore it can move in space. I wonder if you understand all this. So, silence, which is really an extreme form of highest order. You understand this? No, sir, you don't. Don't agree. So silence is not something you contrive, you try to practice or try to become aware. Moment you are aware that you are silent, it is not silence. So, silence is the highest mathematical order. And in that silence, the other parts of the brain which have not been occupied, which have not been active, become totally active. So, the brain not being in conflict, not having great space, not created by thought as space, but an actual sense of space. And that space has no border. So thought has no place in this whatsoever. In the describing, as we are doing this, we are employing thought, using the words which thought uses to communicate. But what is described is not the description is not the described. So the mind, with its brain, becomes totally silent. And therefore, of the greatest order. And where there is order, there is vast space. And what lies in this vast space, nobody can tell you. Because it is absolutely indescribable. And anybody, doesn't matter who it is, describes it or tries to achieve it through repeating words and all that kind of silly nonsense, is making something holy, sacred, he is desecrating it. So and this is meditation. And this is part of our daily living. It isn't something you do at odd moments. It is there all the time, bringing order in everything that it is doing. And in this, there is great beauty. Beauty that is not in the hills and the trees or in the museums, in the pictures or in music. Because the thing that is beauty, and therefore love. That's enough. Not quite, sir.
The silence, the space that you talk about, this awareness, does it remain after the death of the brain?
What? Does it what?
Remain after the death of the brain.
Does it remain after the death of the brain? That is this awareness, this silence. Does it remain after death? Find out. No, please. You see, this is what I mean. We want to find out from others.
Did you find it, sir? Is it there? It's not from me. Significance is your answer. Did you find it?
I won't answer that question, sir.
Krishnamurti?
Wait, sir, half a minute. The questioner asks, I understand more or less what you mean by awareness. What you mean by awareness, what I mean by awareness. He has not understood what is awareness, not what I mean by awareness. Right? If you are not aware of the trees, of the birds, of the people sitting around you, aware of yourself, your conflicts, your struggles, then it is not my awareness, it is that you are not aware. If you are aware, it's your awareness. Then he says, does this awareness survive after death? It's really quite an interesting question, which is there, apart from the me, which is too silly even to ask, do I survive? Apart from that, is there this awareness which is light, which is the beauty, which is immense space in order? Does it go on even though I have this mind has touched it? Obviously, it must go on. It's there. I won't go into it. Leave it. Now, look, question. Sorry.
When I try to be aware of my barriers myself.
Just a minute, sir. Somebody is asking a question.
When I try to watch myself, when I try to watch my barriers, myself, my relationship, I get caught up in effort. I get really caught up in effort. How do I get caught up in effort?
Yeah. When I watch myself, my struggles, my conflicts, my desires, I seem to be in conflict. The question is, how am I to observe myself as I am, whatever I am, without any conflict? Is that right, sir? Yes, without any conflict. That is, try to change what is, try to modify what is, try to go beyond what is. All that implies conflict. Now, can I watch myself without any conflict, seeing that I am angry, violent, jealous, small, petty, narrow, all the absurdities, things that one is? Can I observe all this and go beyond it without conflict? Now, it all depends how you observe. Now, just please listen to it carefully. I'll explain. I observe myself. I am greedy. I want money. I want the pleasures of sex. I am lonely. I am frightened. I want to be somebody. All that is in front of me. I'm watching it. Now, first, is the observer, the watcher, different from the thing observed? If the thing is different from the observer, then there is a division, isn't there? The observer and the observed. Then the observer says, I must go beyond it. I must control it. I must shape it. I must suppress it. So, but the observer is the observed, isn't it? Then, if the observer is the observed, then he cannot do a thing about it, right? Listen to it carefully. As long as there is a division between you as the observer and the thing observed, then in that division there is conflict. Any kind of division outwardly or inwardly, there must be conflict. And when I observe I am greedy, is the observer different from greed? He is not. He is greed. Now, remain with that. You follow? Don't try to change it, go beyond it. If you do, you are again dividing. Whereas if you observe that without the observer, who is the past, then you will see that you have the energy which has been dissipated in the division, in conflict. You have now the energy to observe. And therefore, in that observation, with that energy, the thing that you have observed is gone. Do it, you will see. Yes.
You go into the question of habits. You seem to be a creature of habits, good habits and bad habits. And how it relates to us in our lives.
We live by habits, good and bad habits. And is it possible, the questioner asks, to be free of habits? That's right, sir?
I understand much of what you say, but can you declare to me who is Christ?
What, sir?
I understand much of what you say, but can you declare to me who is Christ?
What? I wonder, sir, that gentleman. What, sir? The questioner says we are creatures of habit, good and bad. Can we get rid of the bad habits and keep the good habits? Is that it, sir? Or why does the mind function in habits? Isn't it easier to function in habits? Everybody smokes, and I also smoke. And I've fallen into the habit of it. And I do so many things because other people do. I believe in nationality, in this or in that, because I've been brought up on that. It's much easier to function in a groove, in a habit. And so the mind becomes lazy and doesn't want to change habits. So the question is, can the mind be free of setting habits and falling into them and then struggling to get out of them? And can the mind always be free in its movement, never falling into a trap of any habit? Is that the question, sir? To do that, one has to observe habits. We have many habits, both outward and inward, just to observe it. And in that observation, not try to change habit, but just to observe it, how the mind always functions in a certain groove, in a certain pattern. And when you give your attention to the observation. Attention, that means energy. Then the mind frees itself from habit. What's your question, sir?
Yes, I understand much of what you say. Can you declare to me who is Christ?
What? Can you?
Can I?
What did you say, Saiko?
Can you declare to me who is Christ?
Sit down, sir, I understand. You see that kind. Can you declare to me who is Christ? Look, sir, if I may point out, don't let's bring our personal opinions into all this, or bring about people whom you respect and so on. We are concerned with the whole religious thought, with the religious mind, and not of a particular religious mind. Sorry, can't go in. Thank you.